So, hello, Right Aligned. We are How&How, and my name's Kat. And I suppose this is me at my peak. I remember those boots as a kid. And just to give you a bit of background about myself, I am founder and executive creative director of How&How. I set up this company in 2020, height of the pandemic. And yeah, so we're just a little bit over 3 years old. We're going to be 4 this year. So going from strength to strength, and we love working with lots of different diverse people, and we have a team of designers and strategists, producers, copywriters, digital designers, developers, basically all around amazing humans and the most amazing people that I've ever worked with. We're basically on a mission to liberate ideas that the world deserves. So this is one of our core values: is any idea, particularly if it helps people and planet, is something that needs to be brought out into the world, and we want to use design and language to help express those ideas in a better way and get them, make them have cut through. And I suppose this is all part about us all peeking under the hood, and this is where we want to show you the beginnings of our process from the start all the way to the end, and how we create a project, and all the different ins and outs and creative ideas and all of that. So I'm really excited to share this one with you today, which is Yum Bun. It's one of my real faves because we did it last year. Actually 2022, I think it was a little bit over a year ago. But I just think it really exudes so much about what we love in just the optimism that we love and value as an agency, the positivity, the expressiveness as well. So I thought this would be a great one to share with you guys. And as you can see, we worked on the brand strategy, narrative, and verbal visual identity, illustration, animation, website, and we also built the website too. So pretty much full service. So just to give you a bit of background, Yum Bun is a street food stall. If some of you live in London, you'll be really aware of it. There are stalls all over the place. And it has a really rich history of being one of the original street vendors serving bao buns in London. So I think it's been around for about 12 years. And here's Lisa, and she's the founder. You can see her here mid-chefing. She's actually a really, really dear friend of ours. When we used to live in London, when I was studying at St Martin's, she was working, I can't remember where, somewhere at a radio production company, I think. And weirdly, I actually did the original brand for Yum Bun. It wasn't this one that we see here in the logo. It was something that I sketched out like in between going to college and just like randomly. I even remember the font I used. It was Sauna, but I wanted to make it really puffy, and the original colors was something along these lines. So that was, years and years ago. And I suppose the thing with Lisa is that, they've been at the forefront. I mean, Yum Bun and her company have been at the forefront of the London food scene. But I think, as you probably all know, if you follow the food scene in London, there's a lot of street food vendors now. There's a lot of bows. And Lisa came to us with a bit of a problem, and she just felt that her distinct purpose had been lost, and they needed to reshape their identity to reflect the growth of her ambitions and some of the new things that she'd introduced along the way. So this is how we got the job. I suppose for many jobs, it's someone you might know, or you refer to someone by someone. And I think with Lisa, that was obviously the case. It was just a friend that we really wanted to help out. So I suppose is that Yum Bun. We always do this with our briefs. We always have a was and a how, so we can look at what the problem is and then how we went about changing that problem. So I can read this out. So Yum Bun was the original street food seller of Bow in London, as I've said, but their brand was getting lost in a crowded market of copycats, and they needed to stand up and stand out for who they really were. They're progressive leaders. They're raising the bar in quality, provenance, and workplace ethics. And their mission, we realised, was to demand more from your street food. So how did we go about this? Well, we cooked up a new brand strategy, like I said earlier, of visual and a verbal identities. That was messaging as well as identity. and the web design and build, and we just added lashings of progressive optimism, which was definitely a word that we use a lot in this brand. We came up with a brand idea, of which I'll talk about in more detail in a second, called Bounce and Rise. And this basically spoke to Young Bun's bouncy bows, playful energy, but also their standard raising culture. So this is all like this idea of elevation. So yeah, let's have a look. So whenever we kick off any work, we always start with a workshop. We did a very delicious deep dive into the sector, and we did lots of market research around her competitors, what we're up against, who we're up against, how do they talk about themselves, how do they look. And we do this with every project, and we do this to understand any emergent themes within the space, and where the opportunity could sit and where we could be different. So something we do as well is, especially with slightly smaller jobs like this, is establish some market territories. So within the market, we found after doing our research that there were 3 different territories that we like established. The first one was loud and proud. So bold newer businesses within the Asian food market, which are dialing up the volume to 100 and owning that bold and rebellious vibe. You know, stuff like Big Joe, Mr. G. The second cluster is around revolutionizing the way we see street food. So businesses like Oaxaca and Fuku, they were really leveraging their ingredient stories and sustainability credentials. We call these guys the fast casual revolutionaries. And finally, we also identified the traditionalists. These guys leverage craft, excellence, and heritage cues. So places like Bun House or Kamuri. So each one with a distinct voice. And what we're trying to do is find out where we sit and where Young Buns can sit. So next, we conducted a workshop to dive into the mindset of Lisa's ambitions and aspirations and current challenges. And that was really, really insightful. So whenever we can, we always try and talk to founders for as long as possible to really get what the problem is and what they're struggling with. So here is a snapshot of some of the questions and insights that we asked. So as you can see, there's a lot of unpicking what the essence of Young Bun is and how it feels, how they're going to stand out in the world. And from the workshop, a few other emergent themes arose. The first was that we had to maintain this optimistic, inviting and playful way in which the business began and how the recipes originated. The second was their ingredient sourcing and the fact that they source lots of ethical, sustainable products, and they have a very ethical way of sourcing their meat and things like that. And this story also had to remain front and center. So we knew we had some things that really, really had to stand out. So after all this fact finding, we went into strategy, which is always, again, another phase we always do. And we shared a few rounds of strategic insights, but we have back and forths about that. But one thing we always do is we always come up with what we call a brand idea. And this is always like the integral result of the strat. And this is basically a jumping off point for the creative. It's when words turn into images and like magic happens. That's what I believe, at least. So we're always looking for something really sticky and really visual. And in this case, the brand idea was Bounce and Rise. We had another one called Rise to the Challenge, but we found like Bounce and Rise had this great like movement. It was like a verb as well, and then it had this elevation. So we could see, you can really see the brand somehow in this. So yeah, this idea embodied, I suppose, the progressive food movement that Lisa was part of, and also tied into the tactile and light nature of the buns themselves, like really, really fluffy. So we always write a manifesto as well, and this is a narrative of like if we close our eyes, we try and establish like a story, or it's almost like a script for the story of the brand. And one thing we're always trying to tell is a story through images as well as words. So I'll read this out because I think it will tee up a lot of the creative that follows. So the day has been there, the sky is grey, there's nothing to report and you're feeling as flat as a pancake. what you need is something to lift you up, something to get you going, something to put a spring back in your step. The choice is wide, but there's only one option: a soft, bouncy pillow filled with the purest fusion, a trip to another world and a mouthful of yes, a curated bite inside the softest, spongiest cloud, whose globe-trotting fillings work in harmony alongside each other through contrasting flavors and complementary textures. We'll take you to that place. The original bun, carefully created for maximum impact. A new age bun, carefully considered for its sustainable credentials, will fill you up with flavor and peace of mind and send you on your way. Bounce and rise with the Yum Bun. Now, I wanted to read that out because there's so many words in here that you will see pulled into the creative and into the system, into the design system, in fact, and into the messaging as well. So this is where we can pull all these cues. We've got our brand idea, but then we have other words, so many other words that we can pull from to like help us create this this vision. So after that, we always go into early ideation, and this is like scrappy, really super scrappy and fun, actually. Lots of refs. Here, we're using Miro. We don't use Miro anymore. We're definitely like 100% Figma folk. But I think it just gives you a snapshot of the extent of how many refs we're pulling together. And I suppose it's great when you've got such a rich and visual language already. But yeah, this is how we could unpick the strategy and how this could begin to manifest visually, essentially. So a lot going on. And then we start to play around with some post-it notes as well. So starting to pull things out from the ref. So it's always this like blend of language and imagery and just trying to like start to shape something more meaningful. So more emergent themes arose, and here we're finding tensions, and the tensions is something that we also think is really important, because you can have two different points you can work out like what actually has the most cut through. So tensions between themes can really like tangible way of starting to filter a creative concept. So meaning versus flavor, cute versus serious, like how do we want to be? And so this led to some of the early explorations here that lead us to our creative directions. Themes here are emerged, which were there around the idea of being steamy, fulfilling, but also this idea of this theme of like Zen tranquility and a fluffy cloud feeling, which was also a reference to a bun, but also this idea of like elevation and foaminess and fluffiness. So we were trying to pull like more profound concepts like Zen and aeration with the actual physical product itself. So then from our early ideation, we go into roots, or we also do something called territories. So we filter down to these territories and one additional loose concept. So we use base territories, and we base our territories on one word, essentially, and this really helps us. And this allows us to hang like succinctly to one key idea. I'll show you in a second. So route one loosely was called elevation. So from all the stuff, all the refs that we bought, all the words, we were like, cool, there's one thing that we feel is really, really key, and this is this idea of elevation or rising. So a positive step in the right direction for the industry. It's that ray of sunshine elevating the quality of the ingredients. So we always then write like a little extra additional, meaning to this one word to help us like set the direction. So as you can see with us, and I trained as a journalist, and I always this was many years ago, but for me, I used to tell stories with words back then and find those stories. And I think one thing we were very, very keen on at How&How is always to use words as well as images, because words can help us so much. We're not just drawing pretty pictures, we're also trying to express ourselves with language as well. And I think it makes the creative stronger, in my opinion. So here we had lots of like grads, which were referencing the steam rising. Luca did this, he did amazing work. We have type following the paths of steam. We have this like slight hazy feel reference to the Japanese izakaya. That was the basis for Lisa starting the business in the first place. Izakayas are like small, scrappy bars in Japan, which are like rough and ready, and you can eat great food at. And then we started to think, well, most importantly, could we actually create like a little optimistic bun mascot as well, and have this idea of like elevation with a smile? So starting to pull together those ideas. Here you can see us starting to test some of these ideas. Really, really early. I like just testing stuff, pushing things around, little smile here, little smile there, like very early. Route 2 we called full. And then we also wrote a little piece about it too, so that full doesn't have to mean complete, to mean excess. It can mean complete. So this idea of like size and like pushing onto the boundaries of like the frame and things like that. So let's use our vessel and fill it to the brim with potential, full hearts, full of bellies, full as bows. So this idea of, first one was about elevation, this one was about like filling the space. So yes, this one was all about using the bun itself as a base. This idea of creating a container that's light and fluffy and filling and fulfilling. And we tried to mirror this in the typography too. As you can see, some of the rest we got were quite big and fluffy. And here, some really early ideations. Where we just very, very quick and dirty, just, maybe it could look like this, maybe it could look like this. So, yeah. And then the third route that we called was filling. And this idea of it being that inside of each of our buns is a story of fusion, and bao buns, or at least the unbun bao buns, are always a combination of Japanese flavors, but with something different. Like sometimes they collaborate with, have Scottish haggis if it's like Burns night, or Lisa's always trying to pair different flavors together and create this fusion, because Lisa herself is half Japanese and half Swiss. So a lot of that story came in through this fusion idea as well in her food. So filling was probably a little bit more of a slightly more complicated to manifest, I think. But I think loosely this one was based around like, how do we tap more of the creativity and energy that goes into the creation of the fillings, and this idea of like something that captures the sights and sounds of the kitchen instead. So steam and movement and activity and like these thin cuts. We used in some of this work here, referencing like the folds in the bun and the hold the filling, and this idea of like holding something and being a container for it. So we wanted to create this graphic language with this route that was more energetic and more like bouncy. And a fourth route, which actually I think we stuck in the appendix, called Harmony, but it ended up being pulled in some capacity in the final brand. So this idea was more of a philosophical one, really. This idea of giving the bun the love and respect that it deserves, and we looked into Japanese philosophy, and it's based on wa and gentleness of spirit. And this was more of a refined route where it brought this like textural elegance to the world of street food, bao zen, fusion food, positive harmony, and this idea of like peace and tranquility that you have once you're so happy eating this amazingly yummy bun. So this was the curveball that we suggested as an option that was, a lot more clean, elegant, and then tapped into the idea of an escape from the intensity of the street food environment, which is quite loud and like bustly. So this was an idea of like this idea of a little zen moment to enjoy and to like take yourself out and just have like a moment eating this lovely piece of food. So from all these, we filtered down to route 1 as the main focus, and this idea of positive mascot was loved, and we wanted this to be a cornerstone of the logo mark, because we love a mascot, and I think they're just so they're great, especially for like consumer brands like this, because they just give you just they're like a little distillation of the brand itself, and you can do so much with the mascot. But the idea of leveraging the bun as a device in a clean, sophisticated way to showcase ingredients were also themes that we wanted to integrate. We felt like there was still something in them that we could put in, so it's a little bit of a smash of a few things. And then we get into refinement. So Again, here's a snapshot of our inner workings. So always testing each element, iterating across logo, type, color, and the graphic system. And then I'll break down each of these iterations so you can see the stages that we went through on each. But yeah, mega massive board. I think this is another reason why I don't use Miro anymore, because it's just so difficult to find stuff in there. You're always worrying that you're going to lose a bit of amazing creative somewhere. But yeah, it's still a great thing to use. So crafting the mark. We started out with some basics. We knew we had to have a bun shape. We knew we probably had to have a mouth. And then there was a question about eyes. And something we asked ourselves was, what makes a happy bun? Which is great, the questions you ask ourselves. And this is why being a creative is so much fun. You get to ask these sorts of questions all day. So here, one of our designers, Carl, dissected what makes a happy bun in an amazing little sort of spider diagram. And it's incredible, actually, how deep you can go into thinking about these things. But yeah, so lots to think about. We tested out many different ways we could bring this little bun to life, but we kept on leaning towards the simplest linear iterations, like middle, far right, some of the guys on the bottom. We felt like that was probably where we wanted it. We collectively sensed that was the right space. So then we started breaking this down into like 3 key attributes. So shape, smile, eyes, just to figure out what combination was going to be like that money mascot that was going to look great. And then we started leaning into these final ones: happy cheeky, content, or content zen. And like showing everyone the studio, which one do you think? Oh, I like this one. Oh, I don't like this one. But I think we basically got to one in the end. And obviously the client, Lisa, did also. We were having obviously chats and catch ups with her and creative shares with her along the way. So she'd have input in this, but this was very much something that we worked on as a team together with. So we chose this guy in the end. We settled on this little chubby, cheeky, happy bun, who we called Bodhi. There is a meaning behind that. I think that it's a Japanese Zen Buddhist word meaning enlightenment or calm. So it felt quite apt. And then we started to look at how we could use Bodhi in 2 different ways, either as a standalone with his little bun body, or over imagery with just his little face. And then we started crafting the logo. So for the final mark itself, well, we can see, as I showed you at the very beginning, what a final mark looked like, but there's obviously, as you guys know, there's always loads of those iterations that happen before we get there. So for the mark itself, we test a lot of different early explorations and iterations, looking again at this idea of fullness, lightness, cuts, folds that we had from the chosen routes. But we found our route to the final mark from a slightly different source, and this was the Hanko stamp. And a Hanko or an Incan is a personal seal that is traditionally used in the lieu of a handwritten signature in Japan. So instead of like writing a signature, you have your own stamp. And we really liked like the really strong, bold footprint of it and the confidence. It felt like a really nice principle to build into the mark. Like it had a real solidity to it, and like it felt really confident. And it also acted as another way of us integrating this like idea of fusion of cultures within the design system, because we're always trying to bring in like Japanese and English and all these different other fusions that are so prevalent in the ingredients, but we also wanted that obviously reflecting the brand. So here are some of the earlier tests, and I'm sure to the uncreative eye, they'd all look the same, but obviously to us, they all look very, very different. So always pushing, like pushing, like top left is like updated Y, and then we changed the counters. We played, then we adjusted some letters, looking at like spacing. It's always a constant pixel pushing operation. And we built this stacked construction with a very, very bold geometric letter footprint, which obviously mirrored the Hanko stamps I was talking about earlier. And we loved the way it had a lightness in the letter forms, but strength and solidity too. And we wanted to also get a little cheeky smile in the Y as well. We kept crafting and crafting, increasing curving on edges, making things feel softer. Um, and we tried to inject a little bit more of the smile and warmth from one of our earlier marks into it too. So like, oh, can we just make it like, can we make the not Y smile a little bit more old versus new? Again, massive details to us, but probably not that massive to anyone else. And it led us to this lovely mark at the end. So this is the final version with increased clarity at small scale. So always trying to test something to make sure it works really small. Because obviously we want these tension, we wanted the tension in between the characters, but if you have too much tension, so too much fat, too much thin, if you make it really small, then it's illegible. So that just defeats the whole point of the exercise. So yeah, always testing large and small. But then there was a final piece of feedback from Lisa, which is great. This is why we love working with founders. It's like, she said, but can we make it rise? And we're like, yes, we can make it rise. So it led us to this guy. And we use the arc of the bun shape as the base for the arc and rebalance the marks to give it more of an optimistic lift. And I think this ultimately actually made it that much more playful and confident. And, and then we added this like grad pulse as well into the animations, just this idea of like sunshine or bunshine as we used to call it, and this sunrise. So once we've got those established, then it's all about crafting the system. And on the wider system, we loved the large holding shapes in the first shares, and we saw this opportunity to base them on the curves and shapes of the final mascot. So we were like, cool, let's just try and use similar principles across the brand. That's what we should do for consistency. And again, we look back to this idea of the fusion of cultures, and we love the idea of balance. Then Lisa's flavor combinations as well. And so could we inject a little bit more of this idea of this philosophical idea of balance into the brand system as well? So weirdly, these are pebbles, but they're actually like a really good ref that we use that's quite with quite a lot of importance. So we designed a layout system that flexed different ratios and combinations of our bun form. So we could just go big and have this like big super graphic and then go small. And here, you can see it's a holding shape containing photography. And then we went into color. And we were in a really nice ballpark at the beginning for the first share, and we love the warmth of the yellow that captured that positivity that we were looking for. And obviously, the original brand had a lot of pink and yellow in it, which was something that already had quite a lot of brand equity, and people associated that with the unbutton. So we also felt it was right for the brand like 12, 15 years ago, and what it was like now. So we wanted to maintain that, but we wanted to evolve it into a more varied palette and keep that softness from some of the early expressions that we had from the left, but bring it more into like a stronger, more confident space as well, because it felt a bit too floaty and dreamy, but we still knew we were in the right zone. So we built a palette of soft pastel tones, and these are all based again, not just around the idea of sunrises and optimism, but also around this idea of steam and yeah, some of those cloud formations that you get. Yeah, cloud formations that you get when there's a sunrise and you get these different like layers of lovely blush pink and lavender and blue sky. But yeah, so everything quite ethereal and dreamlike and optimistic and elevating. And then we realized that the soft grads were really working really well. And again, this idea of keeping this steamy kitchen idea and rising. So it wasn't just the color itself that helped to reflect the brand idea, but it was also then how we combine the colors and what different effects and devices we use within the colors that could help express our brand idea even more, if that makes sense. And then we also brought in this cream, which is very zen as well, but obviously a reference to the colour of the bun. And it was quite nice for calmer moments because we did feel like when it was like two big colours, like as a grad, it was quite intense. So we knew we had to like pare it back in some instances and just calm it down. Type, another massive component, obviously. And who doesn't love a smile and a brand identity? We all do, and I think smiles were so important to this brand. So we saw a really good opportunity to use Faro from Lucy Type. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's such a great typeface, and it's soft curves in the happy family. I think it's a happy family and there's a sad family, but they've got a happy family, and all the curves tied really nicely to our holding shapes, and they had this perfect fit because they were all like they slightly tilt upwards, which we thought was lovely. And here you can see a few more iterations of it, and it was just a real like, you know, it felt like it was the perfect fit. And then we took this one step further. So not only did we choose a typeface which had these little kicks and, but then we were like, oh, can we actually make, you know, can we start playing with type? So we built a series of custom type lockups as well to allow the messaging to capture the sights and sounds of the kitchen. So wafting up, having this diffused texture on, as you can see on the top left, having a bounce and a rise, like a bun shine, like rise to them, or being more like sprinkled, like in the sizzling one. And then we started to pair those with messaging. So we always we have copywriters who write lovely stuff and bring the idea to life. So here you can see a combination of typography working, the color, the diffused effect, everything coming together. And so here they are in action in some of this. I think this is the second shares creative. So you can see us putting this together. Obviously the logo still at this point hadn't been resolved, but we're starting to test out, okay, cool, these are some of the principles that we can apply to the brand. And that's that too. And finally, on the smaller details, we saw an opportunity to leverage like the fluffiness and smile shapes within stickers for the bun boxes themselves. So we're like, cool, how can we actually, you know, how can, when someone buys a Yum Bun, how can they still experience that? Like every touch point of the brand should be a manifestation of the brand idea. So like nothing should go undesigned, and you know, how can we still make it feel like even the stickers feel like a Yum Bun sticker. So then we use these different stickers to also help tell this, the origin stories of the different flavor combinations that Lisa might do, and she does these often. So this was a great way of showing how things could be quite diverse as well. Art direction. So we always try and push our clients to do photo shoots with us, hopefully, controlling and helping to like visualize the photography and like help them manifest that. So we worked really closely with Lisa and with a wonderful photographer called Anton Rodriguez. And we began to define an image library that we knew we needed to make for both the food and the locations, because we knew, like, you know, it's such a physical brand. It just needed to be shot really well. We needed to have some great photography when we launched it, which Lisa could then use and her team could use for a while to come, and they still are using a lot of it. And so we were inspired by the same source as Lisa was in creating her business, which is the Japanese izakaya. And these are like, yeah, like I said earlier, they're like tiny bars. They're really cozy. They're rough. They have rough and ready materials, and they're much more informal eateries. Often with the kitchen in full view as well, which is the case with Yum Bun. So Yum Bun have got, I don't know, 4 or 5 different outlets in London, about 40 staff, and all the staff are working behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes at all, sorry, in front of everyone, and you can see people making food. And I think it was that idea that we also wanted to tap into. So we highlighted 3 areas we knew we needed to consider: atmosphere, style, and then propping. And finally, we filtered this down into two setups. So style one was the plating experience in the kitchen. So we thought about using sheet metal textures, letting the white, like the white bun texture and the vibrancy of the food pop. So like contrasting of textures and lighting. Then a second style was around the dining experience, which was more representative of customer experience. And so this was more based around like warm woods and nice ceramics and most importantly, like hands ready to eat the food, because you always eat a yum bun with your hands. And now this is it in action. It doesn't look like much. It always looks so much better afterwards. But yeah, lots of prepping. Yeah. And here's a snapshot into the prep on our shot list, which sounds pretty delicious, actually. It was. And some of these are some like behind the scenes shots of the working process with our monitor to review. So always like, is this one good? Need more hand? Tuck your hand back a bit, pull this one across, whatever. Always like constantly refining. And it basically led to this beautiful library here, which we felt really captured the energy and the warmth and the deliciousness of the food. And it's just like set it all up to, ready to complement all the new brand elements we were bringing. So it was great to bring in obviously cues from the visual identity into the photography as another expression of that. So here you can see, some of the chosen photography and how we're starting to use our holding shapes as well. And always trying to, bring in that yellow, that's the brand yellow, and showing the team as well, which was really important. And now you can see it all coming together in the final system. So we've got Yum Bun with our beautiful Bry's and smiley face. We have digital experience. So that was a loader. It was Bodhi jumping up and down, some lovely messaging. We also did lots of work on Bodhi's rolling tech, like whether he could roll or bounce and jump and bounce or so here is just bringing all of the stuff that we worked on all together. I always love watching him bounce. And we worked with our lovely 3D animator Victor on these amazing extras as well, because we were like, we do want to make it, let's make it feel real. So started to look at that and introducing the grads, the colors more as an actual sunrise in the background, as you can see there. And looking at different ways we can show the brand, and a fictitious apron, for example, and some nice badges. Obviously, we also designed and built the website for Lisa. And obviously, the website is not a massive part of the brand because it's always such people obviously just go to the places they probably use the website just to find out where the venues are. But still, it was very necessary. So again, using the website as a manifestation of all the brand elements as well, and all the helping to show the different locations, but each little micro interaction being another way of us being able to show the brand in motion. So even how things bounce or pop or rollovers, which can bounce, they're all considered. And again, just showcasing this really fun and playful messaging as well. Take a bow. That was one of my favorites. That was Harriet who worked on that. And some more expressions of perhaps how we could do the belly bands around some of the packaging, and showcasing that all of like Lisa's packaging was sustainably sourced and all like recyclable and things like that. So something she was really pushing towards. And again, we've seen this again, but this is an art direction board and a menu board as well. And some socials where the brand could flex again. And you can see it all coming together there as well. So something that we think makes a project a real true success is how it can be rolled out, and how easy it is for our clients to actually use it, because there's no point making a brand if the client just doesn't know what to do with it afterwards. So with Young Bun having a team, we tried to, well, quite a big team actually. We tried to look at one of the best toolkit to create quick and cost-effective and playful touch points as well. So we're like, well, what's the sort of stuff that you use every day? Well, it's things like stickers. It's on the t-shirts. It's on bags. It's on even like the little papers that the buns are served on. So it's a real joy to see them in action, and it doesn't cost much, but it makes such a difference that when you have, get your little bun, you still see the little mascot smiling at you. When you pick up your bun, it's got on your bag, and all these things, I think, really help to make the customer experience just so much richer, and really like help to just hammer home this idea of the brand. And just before I wrap up, wow, 43, that's great. um, I just want to shout out to the team as well, who created this beautiful project: Chris, Carl, Luca, Victor, Joanna, Harriet, all Elisa, all the amazing people who worked on this project. I can't, like, there was so many people who touched it. It eludes me now how many, but all the people who did, it was a really fun